Welcome back to the channel, everybody. I am Brian Lee Durfee, author of The Forgetting Moon and The Blackest Heart, both books published by Simon & Schuster's Saga Press. Today, we've got one of the best books to review. I got this book about a week early, and I just read it. I swear this book and this series was written specifically with me in mind and all of my tastes about what I love about fantasy and what I love about historical fiction and what I love about writing and good stories. That's this book right here. The Hunger of the Gods by John Gwynne, book number 2 in his Blood Sworn trilogy. Now let me put the sword away. So we can finish this review without any more distractions. Let's talk about the cover first. We always talk about the covers because I love graphic design and I love cover illustration. This one has got a super dope cover illustration by Marcus Winnie. Now I think he's the same artist that did the cover for book 1, The Shadow of the Gods. Now if you want to see my review of The Shadow of the Gods, all you need to do is type in my last name, The Shadow of the Gods, into your YouTube search bar, and the video review will magically appear upon your computer screen. That's how the internet works. I've also got reviews of John Gwynne's Faithful and the Fallen series, which you can see right here. There's 4 books in that series. I reviewed those. Let's talk about Hunger of the Gods, number 2. First of all, if you saw my review of book number 1, you know this series got off to a grand start in high fashion. I loved book number 1, one of my favorite reads of last year. So cinematic. In fact, as I was reading through book 2, I was like, this is the most cinematic fantasy series I've read in a long time. In other words, I think this would translate so gorgeously to the big screen or even the small screen like HBO's Game of Thrones. The scenes and the setup and the way that John Gwynne writes these stories, it lends itself to they would just make great scripts and just very, very gothic, like Viking-esque Norse mythology type gritty fantasy. That's what we're dealing with here, and I would just love to see something like this on the big screen, much like the Vikings or, Bernard Cornwell's The Last Kingdom. Stuff like that. Just with a lot more fantasy elements in it. So this book, first of all, we just talked about the cover. Now let's talk about some of the goodies that are inside. We do have a map of our land. You know I love maps. We've also got a character list, which I find very helpful. I always love character lists. And then we've got a title of Norse terms and mythology. We've got a nice what has gone before, about 3 pages worth of the Cliff Notes version of what happened in book number 1, so we can catch ourselves up to the story. Because I read this about 6 months ago, so I remembered quite a bit of it, but it was nice to have a little refresher. This book takes off where book 1 left off. We've got 3 main characters that we were watching through book 1. It was Orca, Varg, and Elvar. Now, Orca, her husband was killed, her son was kidnapped, she set out on a quest, she hooked up with some guy, two people that were helping her, Mord and Lith. They were brothers. They go searching for her son, Brecca, and Orca's already kind of a seasoned warrior, and so that's where she's going, and that's where she's headed. Varg was in an attempt to sort of talk to his dead sister. He joins, through witchcraft means, he joins the Bloodwoods. Not the Bloodwoods. The Bloodwoods are in my books. The Blood Sworn. He joins that band, and he's on a quest. Elvar is a mercenary. She joins the war band called the Battle Grim, and she sets out on a quest for her own self. At the all those quests sort of converge at the end of this book, and they continue on. All three of these characters continue on with their separate quests. They've got, and also, just so we know, we've got the dragon god, the rat god, the wolf god, the bear god. These are the gods, and the worst and most tragic of all, the spider. And these are the poisonous spider, actually. Most tragic of all. Can't forget that. They are all of these things they're simple gods. They're big, they fight, and they're badass, and I mean, you can see, there's the wolf, the dragon. You can see how big these things are in comparison. I mean, metaphorically and physically, these gods are just badass. We also get two other new perspectives here that we get to follow. Beor, who I really liked in book 1, he is sort of the lover of Elvar, and he has his own sort of, he's like a conflicted lover. He's really conflicted through this. He runs into some things that I don't think he was expecting, especially in regards to that challenge his devotion, let's say, to his Elvar. Anyway, he's got his own quest, and then we got a perspective from our sort of villainous, arrogant, petty, sort of deliciously written bad guy. And his name is Gudvar, and we get a lot of perspective from him, and we get to see a lot of things from him. So all those perspectives combined, we still get a lot of quests. People are still sort of questing for the same goals that they started with in book 1, and now we're just continuing. This book has a lot of battle scenes. Actually, I think for my buck, it's more action-packed than book 1, but maybe not with battle scenes. There's a lot of questing going on. There's a lot of traveling. There's a lot of, how the Fellowship of the Ring traveled from Rivendell up through the mountains and into the mines of Moria and through, the Lord of the Rings had a lot of quests, a lot of hiking, a lot of walking around. This has a lot of going from place to place amongst all of our perspectives. I like that kind of thing. A lot of people don't. I noticed that in my first book, Forgetting Moon, there's a pretty good size section of characters questing through the mountainside and questing into some gold mines. And a lot of the book reviewers are like, that was the part that I found to be boring. I love those parts. That's why I put them in my book. I loved those parts of The Lord of the Rings. I loved those parts of The Wheel of Time. I loved those parts of The Sword of Shannara. I love the quest. This is quest. When I opened up this review, I said, I think these books were written specifically for me in mind. They've got all of the gritty, Norse, Gothic, bloody adventure, and a lot of quests, a lot of people out there just searching for things. And they're not only just searching for things and people, they're not only searching for relatives and relics, but they're searching for revenge. They're searching to rescue others. All of them finding out that life just isn't fair. And all of this just interwoven into these just cinematic scenes of high magic at times, paganistic witchcraft type magic at times, battle scenes that are just bloody and gory and riveting to read, because everybody knows John Gwynne is one of the best writers of battle scenes in the fantasy genre, and he knocks it out of the park with The Hunger of the Gods also. I absolutely adored this book every bit as much as this one. And I adored this one. I have to give The Hunger of the Gods my highest rating. It's a 10 out of 10. I actually like this series The first two books in this series, I actually would recommend them before The Faithful and the Fallen. And The Faithful and the Fallen are classics in the genre. They just are just great books. And if you can watch my review of these books, you'll see what I thought of those. Absolutely fabulous. I actually think that John Gwynne has upped his game quite a bit with this series. This was a knockout start. This is a second book that is just great. And I don't want to spoil anything for you, but it winds down to some very Empire Strikes Back sort of cliffhanger type, gut-wrenching ending scenes where you're just like, okay, now I gotta know who lives or dies. Gotta know who gets rescued and who gets not rescued. Anyway, that's my review. I hope you like that review. You guys gotta go out and get this series. It is super fly.